I went to Kent State to study painting and did that for 2 years, and then you have a mid-residency review, and my painting teacher very gently suggested I try something else, and I was pretty devastated until the next term, took a film class, and that was it. No looking back. No question. 2 films. Saga series by Pat O'Neill and Zorn's Lemma by Hollis Frampton, which he showed, and you rented it for a certain amount of time, and after class was over, I stayed after class. I think I watched it. It's an hour-long film. I watched it 5 or 6 times, because you're sort of filling in the pattern there, and I watched that thing all day, and each time was newly blown away by it. So I think those were definitely the 2 biggest influences.
What did Saga series do for you?
It sort of opened up the world of optical printing. When I moved to CalArts, I couldn't wait to get out of Ohio. I graduated. I always make a habit of graduating during recessions, and there's never any work. So after I graduated from undergraduate school, I had what was called a CETA job, building trails. I was on welfare. I worked in a bar, the sleaziest bar in the entire universe. Great music. I worked for the audiovisual department, running a follow spot for ice shows, all kinds of stuff. And so I very much look forward to moving out there. I had saved up enough money for 1 term and then couldn't afford it after that. I had already broken with my parents financially and philosophically, and so I was all on my own. So I went out there. I was working more than I was going to school. There were 3 women in the film school out of 80. No women faculty when I started. I loved it. Filmmakers was done in a post my last LSD trip, fog, as a reaction to the male aggression that was going on at CalArts. It stars Chris Cassidy, who I was sharing an editing room at the time with. I made the whole thing in about 3 months. I remember very little about the time. It was supposed to have been just a very simple 2-color high-con film, but I accidentally butterflied the 2 layers, meaning I flopped one by accident. And so instead of having one person sitting at an editing table like this, I ended up with 2 on top of each other, like like a Rorschach thing. And I edited the picture to Peter Pan's I Won't Grow Up, which has always been one of my favorite songs, and just cut the sound the same way I was cutting the picture, intercut this guy editing with the sound became a scream, the picture became film reels turning, and just increased the frequency of the cut. It was edited on a synchronizer without listening to the sound. The length was determined by well, it started out being the length of the song, but by the time I had chopped it up, you couldn't tell what anything was anyway, and I just ended up shorter and shorter cuts, 4 frames, 2 frames, 1 frame, and then expanded it quickly back out to the film reels. Filmmakers is just sort of a nice, fun film, and I think it's a really good document of what was going on at CalArts at the time and my feeling about it. Just the love-hate relationship with the people and the film, and just getting immersed in it, and it all ends up in the screen. But it was a nice scream. Once again, there was a recession when I graduated from CalArts. There was no work. There was really not a lot going on. There was, people talk about the CalArts Mafia. There was no CalArts Mafia. There was nothing. There was you and a lot of bills and no money, and I lived way out in the middle of nowhere. My van got washed away in the flash flood. I applied for welfare, but I couldn't get welfare because I didn't have a van to take me to the welfare office to fill out the last form I was supposed to fill out. It was a bad time. I took refuge with my friends in the area, Adam Beckett, Chris Cassidy, a couple other people. Everybody was living out in Valverde. nobody had any money at all. I think my first film job, I don't remember how I got it, was doing props on somebody's short film. Occasionally I would get a job where I could make $100 here and there, but I was living cheap. What really changed things was when Star Wars came out. Star Wars, Robbie Blaylock worked on it, Adam worked on it, and I was finally hired. Robbie started his own company with Jamie Short called MPI, and I was hired as a combination optical printer operator and driver, and everything else. The first show we had in was Carl Sagan's Cosmos, and I'm debating how much of this to tell. We didn't have a motion control system, I'll put it that way. We had a human motion control system. That was a dolly, a camera, a roll of masking tape, and Sharpies. And we would lay out the tape on the floor, mark it with Sharpies. Frame 1, Sharpie, shoot. Move the dolly forward. Frame 2, Sharpie, shoot, etc., etc. That's your beauty pass, a planet with rigging around it. Maybe spinning, but that was a big deal, usually just still. When that was done, you would bring the dolly back to the beginning. They would put in a roll of High-Con black and white film stock to do the matte pass. You'd line the dolly up with the first marker, shoot another frame, etc. Then you would go into the optical printer and have to hand line up every picture to every matte, frame for frame. And that was our optical control system. My work in the film industry is what allowed me to make 16mm films as long as I did. There's no money in making 16mm films, and it was extremely expensive. And I'm pretty proud that I continued to do it for about 12 years after I graduated. Yes, I bought the computer. Yes, I bought the camera. Everything I've done since then, I've made 3.5, almost 4 films. Not a cent. It's free. Finally, I could do what I wanted to do without finances being a factor. And it was like giving somebody who'd been starving for 20 years unlimited food. And I think it was coincidentally I started teaching at CalArts at that time. Interestingly, what I'm teaching is the optical printer. Having sworn off optical printers for myself for all eternity, sworn off the optical printer for work for all eternity, thrilled to be doing this stuff digitally, now I'm teaching optical printing.